Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Matt Jarbo. Welcome back to $3 Theater. This is going to be a fun video today because we're going to be talking about Tron 3, and what could have been. Now, if you're like me, you grew up in the 1980s, you grew up watching Jeff Bridges and Tron, you loved the damn thing, even though the graphics to this day, it didn't really hold up, but the movie's still a lot of fun. It's still a lot of fun. And also, if you're like me, when they announced Tron Legacy back in 2000, coming out in 2010, you were excited. Then they said that Daft Punk was going to be doing the soundtrack, and all of a sudden, your expression turned into that gif from Vince McMahon absolutely going orgasmic. And I'm not going to lie, I loved the shit out of Tron Legacy. Was it a perfect movie? No. Did it have some story flaws? Absolutely. But stylistically, tonally, soundtrack wise, everything else was just, it was great. And I was watching it again the other day at Best Buy. They were just running a screening of it, ended up watching 25 minutes, didn't give a shit. That movie is great. I was always disappointed that Tron 3 was canceled. But now, according to Collider.com, at a screening they held for Tron Legacy, Joseph Kosinski reveals the plot for Tron 3, and he called it an invasion movie. But first he talked about the whether or not Tron 3 is completely dead, because that has been something that's been asked a couple times, and this is what he has to say. I guess I can say that Tron 3 is in cryogenic freeze, so it's there. It's not dead, it's alive, but it's sitting there, waiting for the right time to move forward. I mean, you have to remember that when we made Tron Legacy, Disney did not own Marvel, Disney did not own Lucasfilm. They own everything now, but this was before they owned everything, so from the studio point of view, they have a certain number of slots and a certain amount of money to make movies, and if you can make a Star Wars spinoff or another Marvel movie, which are doing incredibly well, a Tron movie, even though I think it would do very well, the question is, would it do as well as one of those? That is more the reason why we haven't seen another Tron, is that Disney stock is flushed with really successful properties right now, but that doesn't mean we won't see one at one point. So that's an interesting point to take on it, right? Tron is in cryogenic freezing. Now, after Tron Legacy came out, they did do the Tron, I forget what it was called, but the TV series, the animated show, which I never saw because I'm a cord cutter and it never kind of came up on any of the services I have. But I heard good things about it, and it definitely followed the adventures of Korra, Olivia Wilde's character from Tron Legacy. So that's very much like they were trying to kind of instill that fan base with the younger audience, and I heard it was a well-received show, but clearly it's no longer on the air. I think it lasted 2 seasons, and then they decided to kill the franchise entirely. But keep in mind, Tron 1 came out in 1982. Tron Legacy came out in 2010. All right, that is a very long time. That's like 28 years, And so Tron 3 might at some point come out. Now, listen, are we going to get Jeff Bridges in it? Probably not. But Flynn, how we had him in Tron Legacy with the CG, could be done. We know that the CG now works a lot better, looking at how they did, Peter Cushing from Rogue One and everything else. Like, we know that the technology is there, so they might be able to do something with that. But at the same time, he makes a good point here. With Disney owning Marvel, owning Lucasfilm, and how much money they're making, why would they want to invest $250 million? Let's just give it a rough estimate, $250 million in a Tron movie, right? Why would they want to do that? Well, the reason is because fans want it, right? Fans pushed for Tron Legacy. Fans are going to have to be the ones that are going to have to push for another Tron movie, because we need more kind of pro video game culture-esque films, not movies necessarily based on video games. Like, I would argue that Wreck-It Ralph is very similar in nature to Tron, in terms of you could say theme, right? And maybe general genre. I mean, Wreck-It Ralph is an awesome cartoon, animated movie. Can't really call it a cartoon, but it's an awesome animated movie, jumps in between multiple game worlds. And that's kind of what he was talking about with Tron 3. So skipping down here to the rest of the interview, he says, the movie was called Tron Ascension. I think that's out there. I think we got the script to about 80%. We were in good shape. We were probably 8 or 9 months out, which is still a good amount of distance from being ready to shoot, but I think the script was in good shape. What I'm excited about is the concept, which is an invasion movie from inside the machine coming out as opposed to the one we've usually seen. So we hinted at that at the end of Legacy with Korra coming out, but the idea for Ascension was a movie that was the first act would be in the real world, the second act was in the world of Tron or multiple worlds of Tron, and the third act was totally in the real world. And I think that really blows open the concept of Tron in a way that would be thrilling to see on screen, but there's also a really interesting character study in Korra and a stranger in a strange land trying to figure out where she belongs, having lived in the real world for a few years, and where does she fit in. And of course, fish out of water, trope kind of applies to this, and generally that is a lot of what happens in these particular types of stories. They bring the person out, they have to kind of adjust, then there's going to be the foot in either world kind of situation. So, but having them go into multiple Trons, I understand the concept there, which is why I brought up Wreck-It Ralph, because that essentially to me says they would want to experience, as technology advances, you figure 1982 Tron would be far different than what we would see now. The technology could be used and adapted and molded and changed and built into something else entirely, as technology tends to do through the process of evolution and everything. So I look at something like this and I think they could have jumped into different worlds. But at the same time, if it's about Tron coming into our world, like a portal opening, them able to get it out, and then here come the ships, and it becomes basically like Pixels all of a sudden, it would have to be a very, very, very finely tuned story, because you don't want it to become essentially Pixels, which is essentially a rip on Ghostbusters, but you would want it to be this invasion movie, that would be handled maybe a little bit more tactfully than, let's say, Battle LA, which is a movie I actually quite enjoyed for what they were attempting to do with it. Like, we would want something maybe more grounded like Battle LA and not as over the top as, let's say, Independence Day Resurgence, which was fun in its own right, but clearly not meant to be taken with any bit of seriousness. Now, as for whether or not this movie is going to continue in theaters, that is something that has left to be determined, because going up here, Kosinski does say that it definitely doesn't have to be on a movie screen. I don't know if you saw the Tron ride, which opened in Shanghai and was amazing. I think the Tron franchise is alive and rides, and there's still interest in exploring other things like VR. But as far as the TV show, I don't know. I think that would be tough. As you saw on screen, so much of the world has to be created digitally. You can't just go and film a Tron movie, or at least the Tron side of it. So I don't know. I would never say never. There's possibly a version of that, but that's up to Disney. Which, look, I talked about this kind of with the whole Bright Netflix thing. We're seeing a larger push for home-based content watching, right? Movie theaters are still making money hand over fist, but they're doing it with Marvel movies and Star Wars movies and animated films and those kind of projects. Those big experience type movies are what people are going to be watching when they go to the theaters. So your best course of action, I think, for something like Tron would be a limited event series on Netflix. 4 episodes, maybe 8 episodes if you broke it up. Tell the story, right, how you want to tell it. Invest $50-60 million into it or something like that, and then go from there, because that's what we're going to see. We're going to have to start seeing the budgets of these things coming down. If the world of Tron needs to kind of be downgraded a little bit graphically, that's not so much of an issue. Like, we loved the way it looked in 1982, right, with the old graphics from 1982. They can definitely replicate those kind of graphics and make them obviously a lot better going forward. What I don't want to see is like really horrible CG and green screen work like we see in the Freeform show Beyond, which every time it goes into the green screen stuff is just kind of like, not very good. I didn't really care for it. But with something like Tron, it's a lot of darks. It's a lot of dark. It's a lot of dark. It's a lot of blacks and a lot of neon lights. And if you can't replicate that easy enough for television, then I don't fucking know what you're doing. But obviously some of the more insane scenes like the light cycle battles and all that kind of stuff could definitely take a little bit of time. But something like that too, if you're doing it where it's like the first act is in the real world and then it goes into multiple worlds and then the last act is in the real world, all you have to really focus on is the middle half of the middle portion of the story of the TV series or movie or whatever, of shooting it inside of the digital world. So your budget already is going to be dropping exponentially because only 1/3 of a film is going to be taking place there. So there are ways to go forward with this. Now, I look at something like Tron, and I think this is definitely a franchise that has longevity to it. People definitely still love it. We're seeing once again, a big resurgence of 1980s stuff, and we're seeing a lot of people want to kind of go back to that time. And there's nothing wrong with kind of, even if it's like, I don't know if they need to. I don't want to go as far as to say that they should do like a reboot of Tron. Have like retell the first story, bring in a new Flynn. No one's going to replace Jeff Bridges ever. But I do think that there is a world there to explore, and I feel that if they do it right, it can be successful, and it can be profitable, and it can be well received both critically and through fans, and then give us a proper Tron finale, maybe, or a conclusion, or a setup for a further storyline. But the thing is, Kosinski is a fantastic director. Watch Oblivion from 2013. That Tom Cruise movie. It's a really well done movie. He is a fantastic visual director, and I think if he was given the opportunity to do something in terms of a long form or a longer form, show like for Netflix or something that had a bit more of a budget, then he would be able to craft something that would, I think, very well resonate with viewers, and that's something I'm excited for. But then again, we'll have to wait to see. Disney is absolutely flush with cash, but they're not going to sit there and waste it if they don't have to. So that's sadly where we are right now. But anyway, what are your guys' thoughts on this? Do you think that Tron 3 will ever happen? Do you think that the Ascension idea is any good? Is it kind of dumb? Should they just scrap all of it? Should it be rebooted? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. My name is Matt Jarbo. This has been 3 Buck Theater. If you haven't already, thumbs up that video. Subscribe to the channel. Check back often for more movie news from me. If you guys want to subscribe, that'd be fantastic. I'll talk to you all later. Have yourself a fantastic day, and peace out.